We have another familiar face, Lawrence from Yotpo, and he is joined alongside Thomas from the Turmeric Company. And it's good to know that Thomas actually had a football career before he started his company, representing his country Wales at the 2016 European Championships, scoring a very famous goal against Belgium in the quarterfinals. Thanks, Seb, for the info. But now he started the Turmeric Company, and together with Yotpo, with Lawrence, they will tell how he grew from a €0 company to a multi-million euros company with Shopify. So give them a warm applause, Lawrence and Thomas.
Thanks, Kelly. Amazing to be here, and big thank you to everyone at Ask Phill for putting on such an amazing event. My name's Lawrence. I'm a senior partner manager at Yotpo. Very quick introduction before we get on to the more important stuff is that we're an e-commerce marketing platform. So we have tools for reviews, visual UGC, loyalty referrals, and SMS, soon to be subscriptions. Idea is that all these platforms work together. They share a data layer to help you understand your customer base better and to incentivize the highest value behaviors from very targeted segments of those customers. But off that, Thomas Hall Robson-Kanu, pleasure to have you here today, ex-footballer turned entrepreneur. Would you like to give a quick introduction to yourself and the Turmeric Co?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for that, Lawrence. Nice to see everyone here today, and credit to Ask Phill and the team over there. They put on a fantastic event, and pleasure to be a part of it. So my journey started as a young, budding professional footballer. I had a dream of playing in the Premier League, playing at international level. Unfortunately, injury set me back, and so I was hampered as a teenager with 2 surgeries, which subsequently meant I couldn't play without pain or restriction in my knee. That led me to taking things like ibuprofen, diclofenac, paracetamol, which are anti-inflammatories and drugs. And as a 17-year-old taking those, they really damaged my insides. So I had side effects such as passing blood in my urine, severe nausea, and I was still playing with pain and restriction. And so my father and I, we turned to research, and we began to look into natural options to support health and well-being. And we began to identify raw natural ingredients which were used in certain parts of Eastern Asia, certain parts of North Africa, and certain places in terms of Ayurvedic practices, holistic practices, and they would use things like pomegranate, pineapple, watermelon, ginger, and turmeric. And so my father sourced these raw natural ingredients and began turning this into a blend. And after a few weeks, he had created this golden elixir, which I had really knocked my socks off. That's not what it looked like then. Obviously, this was like 17 years ago. But it really knocked my socks off. And where I was nutrient deficient as a teenager, meaning that my diet consisted of potatoes, pasta, chicken, and baked beans, that's all I ate. Nutrients in my body were severely low. So having such a potent compound of natural raw ingredients, functional ingredients, really changed my health. And so within a few weeks of using this golden elixir, I began noticing differences in terms of my energy, began noticing differences in terms of my restriction. But after 6 weeks of using this range, I woke up, my usual routine, get out of bed, head into the shower, and in the shower I realized that was the first time in over 2.5 years I'd woken up without pain and restriction in my knee. And so it was a light bulb moment for me in terms of nutrition, health, wellness. I subsequently used that range throughout my career. A year later, I ended up playing in the Premier League. A year after that, I made my international debut, and subsequently had a career which spanned over 10 years at the very top of professional football, playing in major tournaments such as European Championships, and obviously in the Premier League. And so in 2016, I was in a store in London called Harrods, and I saw a turmeric shot on the shelf, and I was delighted because we were still making this blend at home. And I bought the shelf, bought the load of them, took them back to my dad's, and we went to drink them together, and we had to spit it out. We couldn't believe how inferior it was to what we were still making at home. And it was only when we spun the back of the bottle and we looked at the ingredients that we realized it consisted of apple juice, water, and the functional ingredients of the shot were very low. You know, you're talking like 2, 3, 4%. And so we looked into the market, realized that that was what was everywhere in the market, and that consumers were clearly growing in terms of awareness, in terms of functional natural nutrition. but they weren't being serviced with truly functional products. And so we decided to bring what was, a homemade recipe to market. Yeah.
Amazing. I think all the best business stories always start off with like a personal element to it, and a personal pain point in your case. I also love the fact that with everything developing like modern medicine and technology, you've gone down a really natural route to help to solve the pain, but that doesn't necessarily make it any easier to start a business. And are you able to share some of the challenges that you faced in launching the Turmeric Co that might relate to some of the audience here today?
Yeah, definitely. So again, the biggest decision in terms of launching the business was like, what channel would we really look at as our main channel? And so we decided to launch the business, and we made the decision in 2016. It took 2 years of building the infrastructure, doing the research in terms of understanding what was our route to market. And given the market was relatively new, and given that what was currently already available on the market was sat on shelf, we knew if we penetrated retail and looked at retail as our main channel, we would have a split second for a consumer to make a decision between a truly functional product and a product which really was just apple juice sold in a small shot bottle. And so we decided that the route that we needed to go was direct to consumer, and we wanted to build consumer experiences around the product and take customers on the journey of using our range. And so we realized that the only way we could fundamentally do that was by delivering them directly to their house and actually creating an experience where they can order online, experience that customer journey, drive that lifetime value of the customer through that, and make sure that we're educating that consumer as well. And so we launched the business in 2018, and we launched our store. Obviously, we built it on Shopify initially, and the functionality of really understanding how we could take customers on that journey with the product was our main focus initially at launching. In terms of the pain points, it's a lot of people, when they set up a business, and rightly so, they'll focus on acquisition. And of course, everyone wants to acquire customers at any stage of any business. But we identified very early on that a key element for our success was going to be fundamentally about retention. So we really did do extensive research around retention strategies, which would not only increase the repeat purchase rate of consumers, but we would really have successfully high lifetime values of customers. And that meant for us as a business that we could therefore, in time, as we proved use of case, that we could invest heavily in marketing, more heavily in terms of marketing and on acquisition side. And so, a lot of businesses and, startups that I speak to now, who maybe I'd, advise and they'd come to me for direction, I would say don't even think about acquisition. Like, focus on how you can create a retention strategy, and what does that look like for your consumer, and then what does that actually look like for your product, for your market category, so on and so forth. And so that was a big differentiator for us in terms of building a business which could scale rapidly, obviously in selling such a small little product as well. So yeah.
Cool. I think the Turmeric Co is unquestionably thriving right now, so some of those initiatives must have worked. I had a crazy stat the other day that your retention rate is around 60%, which is twice the industry average. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Turmeric tokens and how you're rewarding these clearly quite loyal customers?
Yeah, so our retention rates are very, very strong online, and obviously we have achieved that through various different ways. Firstly is building a subscription model. So, that's a fundamental element of, a successful e-com business. How can you create ease of purchase? And we've done that through a replenishment, model online. But in terms of really taking consumers, particularly around that journey of, with our Turmeric tokens, repeat purchases with them, it was creating that experience where they would purchase, and then we would engage with them at particular key touch points of their journey. So a key touch point could be when we know that they're receiving their order. So standard mechanics would be, okay, send an email, yep, your order's on its way, but we would engage with them and say, okay, your order's on its way, but did you realize you've now got 10,000 Turmeric tokens which you can redeem towards your next order in 28 days time, or whenever your box runs out. If they'd ordered 14, then 14 days time. So the retention strategies around customization of loyalty was very, very important, which we obviously achieved through what we have as Turmeric tokens. But there are a lot of different mechanics involved, and again, what I put that back to is, we were very obsessed early on in terms of data, and what that meant was that we were very aware of the key metrics that we would look for in terms of whether a strategy was performing or not. And so, yeah, Turmeric tokens is a nice basic example of that.
Cool. I think a key takeaway from that is that you're not just rewarding customers for making purchases, and there's a bunch of different behaviors that are going to be valuable to incentivize, one of which is leaving reviews. As a man who knows a thing or two about conversion, how important are reviews to the business?
Yeah, so everyone will know reviews offer that social proof. What we've been able to do is really offer tailored reviews of the product across different platforms. So being able to pull reviews, as an example, into Google Feed, which can then support acquisition, being able to place reviews in a convenient widget sitting on a product display page, as well as obviously having reviews nicely displayed on the homepage as well. So it's a fundamental part of any e-com business, but a lot of businesses actually don't have that set up early on. But it's the mechanics around getting the review as well. So how do you incentivize reviews for customers? And so one way that we did that was build in an incentive around the Turmeric tokens too. So the biggest thing with anything in the e-com space at this moment in time for me is like interoperability. So really making sure that platforms are speaking to each other at the correct times. And I think there's a lot of silos, particularly in the e-com space. So looking at your tech stack, it's how do they integrate with one another, and are they communicating with the other platform at the correct touch point? And an example of that could be, in terms of RFM segmentation, if you're segmenting your customers based on recency, frequency, and monetary value, at what point does a customer moving from one segment of a high-value customer moving to another segment of this customer might be about to leave you, then does that then trigger a email flow, which then drives retention in terms of making them purchase again? So if you have platforms that are built in siloed ways, then immediately you're facing an uphill challenge, particularly when you obviously want to scale.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things about the way in which you incentivize reviews that maybe I hadn't thought of before is that not only is a review a great way to get some content that's going to help convert customers on site, but from the flip side, it's actually a great way to give a customer a way to engage after they've made a purchase and have a reason in terms of a token incentive to come back and shop with you again. Another example of these platforms connecting and speaking to each other is SMS, which we've started to see some real growth within the Netherlands. The opportunity around SMS is typically around the engagement rate. On average, 98% of customers will open an SMS message. 90% of those messages will be opened within 3 minutes of being received. So it's a great way to communicate some of the stuff around the program. What was it that made the Turmeric Co embrace SMS and use it as a channel for your customers?
So we had initially integrated with SMS Bump, which Yotpo eventually acquired. But I think the fact, again, that from an SMS perspective, we had issues very early on when we launched around the connection between SMS and email. And so, we were set up on Klaviyo and we were using SMS Bump, I think, originally. And the attributes of the customers weren't pulling through correctly. And again, it's down to that interoperability aspect. So the fact that now we really have a very integrated tech stack allows us to effectively communicate to consumers. And it's all about the customer journey. Like, at what point are you asking a customer to purchase again? At what point are you encouraging the customer to experience the product? Or does a customer need social proof to make another purchase or to recommend one of their friends? So it's really understanding that, and the only way that you do that is through research, is through data. But then when you have that, you can then drive that into channels such as SMS. So for us, we use SMS in terms of quite heavily connected to our subscription model. We've got over 10,000 active subscribers, and so making sure that, for example, an upcoming order, particularly around holiday season, will turn on SMS functions that allow them to delay their order through SMS. We'll turn it off outside of holiday season, but the difference and the impact that that's had on customer perception and customer engagement with us, allowing them, they're traveling, based in the UK, they're traveling off to Europe. They don't have to go out of their way to delay their upcoming order. And actually, a lot of subscription businesses who don't tailor to the consumer touch points will experience churn and heavy churn, because it then becomes easier for that customer just to log on and cancel the subscription. Whereas we're proactively engaging with those consumers at the key times. But we obviously, we're very dynamic in the way that we work, and we will test things aggressively, and off the back of, obviously winning tests, we'll integrate them. But this has all been learned through testing and learning.
Yeah, I think a clear message from that and how you're using SMS, I think gets past this fear of it being too intrusive or spammy, is making sure that it is tied to other elements, tied to the data that you have on customers, and constantly personalized and relevant. I think that makes sure that anyone receiving a text message actually gets some value from it. We've spoken quite a lot about how we've got the business to where it is today. Looking to the future and looking to 2023, what's next for the Turmeric Co?
Yeah, so we've built the business successfully today. We've got 3 core SKUs in our range, which is sort of crazy when I think about it, because when I look at sort of businesses, e-commerce businesses, which we aspire towards, they'll have 50 plus different SKUs across the different areas. So we've done phenomenally well, but a big area of where we will be going is in terms of product expansion. So we'll be expanding our core range out, which will be very, very exciting. We've got some crazy innovation in the pipeline, which is really going to drive this category of functional shots and functional beverages forwards. We're also planning in terms of internationalization. Again, that's another beast to deal with from an e-commerce perspective, because there's so many decisions in terms of how you build the international store. I won't go into it now, but there's lots of questions and that we need to answer and establish. But once we do, we'll look to launch initially into North America, which is very exciting. We haven't touched on sort of other areas, but we launched a SEO strategy in 2020, and now, because of that SEO strategy, 50% of our online traffic is from North America, and it's organic, which is crazy, and we're not servicing it. So we've got over 60,000 visits on a monthly basis from North America. So we're trying to get to there as quickly as possible, which will be really exciting. And then also we're looking at retail opportunities for the business as well. And that's a big thing where e-commerce, I've been to loads of these events, and I love the audiences. I love everyone involved in the e-com space. But I think as a business, you really have to be aware that an omni-channel approach to your bottom line is essential. And so from our perspective, we know that we've got a fantastic opportunity of driving growth into retail, which will then allow us significant volume in terms of uplift in revenue, uplift in brand awareness, which we can then re-leverage into our e-com store, because we know our lifetime value is 10x our sort of CPAs on the majority of paid media channels. So yeah, there's lots of exciting opportunities, and but yeah, it's busy. So I flew in from London today, and I'll be flying back to London this afternoon. So
it's a big shift, and it sounds like it's just the start, right? It's exciting to see how the Turmeric Co is going to grow from here. From a personal perspective, you've got the best side gig out of anyone I know, really. You're going to the World Cup. How excited are you for that? And do you have any predictions for the audience here today?
Yeah, I'm not playing in the World Cup, obviously. I'm going as a pundit for ITV. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going out to Qatar. I don't know if we have sports or football fans in the audience, but there's been a lot of controversy around the Qatar World Cup and it being hosted there. But fundamentally, it's going to be a phenomenal spectacle, and anyone who's into sport, into football, will know how big a World Cup is. So it's going to be a privilege going out there. We fly out there on the 19th of November with the whole ITV team. And yeah, we'll be covering a lot of the games, which will be fantastic.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Thomas. I guess now's a good time to open up to the audience if anyone has any questions. Yes, where's the... oh.
Do you want that, or are you getting that? Well done. It's a cool box.
Hi, very
Hi.
interesting approach with the focus on retention. I actually have not heard that before, so I thought it was really cool. I do was wondering, how do you get to the retention stage? Because of course you first have retention, then you can focus on acquisition. Where do you see the awareness layer in this whole picture?
In terms of acquisition or?
Yeah, because you said my advice would be focus on retention.
Yes,
it's very important. But how do you get people there in the first place? Awareness is important, right?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of a very good question. And so what I would do is, what we did and what I would recommend anyone else do is look at organic awareness initially. So build community. So we attended, rather than going immediately to paid social channels, Facebooks, etc., we went to the consumers where we thought our main consumers would be. So we attended a lot of trade events. Health and fitness is a big area for us, obviously in relation to the product. It's obviously related to a lot of other people, consumers too, but that was a key market we identified. So we didn't spend heavily in terms of acquisition, but we went to our customers where our customer base would be. So what that allowed us to do was allow for sampling of the product, so consumers could feel the product in the hand, taste the product, but that then allowed us to then begin to build communities around them. So we would look at data collection. So every event that we went to, we'd say, okay, there's 5,000 people attending this event. We need to capture 10% of the mailing list. And so very early on, over the first 12 months, we built a audience of, say, maybe 15 to 20,000 potential customers, but they were engaged customers, and that was pulled into our mailing list. And so we hadn't spent any money on any paid media channels. And so what we then began to do was communicate and engage with them, obviously through ECRM channels, which then allowed us to make acquisition, achieve acquisition, make customers, and then test customers through the funnel that we'd created in terms of retention. As soon as we validated that funnel and we said, okay, well, actually, we're seeing high levels of repeat purchase, we're seeing, obviously revenue into the business, we then began to invest into tailored, paid channels too.
Yeah, I think I can just quickly add to that as well, as if these retention initiatives work properly, they're cyclical. Giving a customer an incentive to leave a review is actually going to feed into that review being on your website, and then actually help drive traffic to your website through the SEO benefits of reviews in an organic way too. So it helps each part out.
Good question, yeah.
Based on what you've been saying, you've got a fairly sophisticated way of how you're looking at your customer base, and because you're more or less all online. And now with your intention to move offline, what's your strategy in being able to have that level of sophistication also offline?
Another really good question. So we've begun to engage with agencies who basically run tests, so run sampling, run testing, and run Q&As with various different consumer groups. And so the objective is to replicate the model that we've done online with retail customers. So a great example will be at a listing. So we're stocked in David Lloyd gyms in the UK. So we will have a individual on site taking consumers through a Q&A, and from that data we then build a data set which we can inform us in terms of whether it's acquisition, whether it's consumer behavior, whether it's retention. So again, it's still data, but it's a different way of achieving that data. But it's fundamentally a very important point, because the big thing about brands as well, particularly startup brands, you feel like you can't talk to your consumer. So a big thing we did was communicate with our consumers, and we ran a qualitative and quantitative research period over 9 months, where we asked and called our customers, over 1,000 of them. It took 9 months. Our whole customer service team did this, and off the back of that, we had a massive data set, which then fed into our model called jobs to be done. It's like a theory around the jobs of your product. So now we know that every single customer that purchases our product will purchase because of 4 jobs. Ours particularly are recovery, immunity, performance, and energy. So we now know if anyone purchases our product online, they have purchased for one of those 4 jobs. We can then segment those customers into those jobs. So they may, so for example, depending on an ad set that they come through, the ad set is tagged. If they've been hit with a questionnaire at checkout, they say, I'm purchasing for immunity, that's tagged in the back end to that customer profile, and now their customer journey is completely different to someone who was tagged or purchased because of pain. And so that's a bit of insight into what we've done from a sort of tailored customer journey. Nice.
Cool. Brilliant. Cool.
Hi, Sufyan here. First of all, thank you very much for your very interesting talk. I was wondering, could you tell us a bit more about identifying the customer lifetime value and what role the CLV plays in your retention strategy? Can you segment, and does the strategy change?
Yeah, so you'd be able to segment based on cohort. So again, it all depends how sophisticated the platform is that you're using or the data is that's coming in. We use a specific platform specifically for RFM segmentation, but then that platform is plugged into the job, so the reason of purchase. So we can then say layer those two data sets and then add in terms of when that customer was first purchased. So then we layer that into cohort data. And so from that, we could say, well, we know a customer who purchased during this period for this reason, from that ad set has X lifetime value, but obviously it takes time for it to mature. So yeah, I think in terms of lifetime value, it is the data has to be accurate fundamentally, and then the data processing platform that you use has to also be accurate. And then it's like people will be like, oh, lifetime value, I've got a lifetime value of £500, and then, okay, well, we've got a cost of acquisition of £100, let's scale that all the way up to £50 and grow that. Well, no, you have to take into account margin, you have to really understand, but then that then goes deeper into the business, economics as well. So it's not just one section, they're all talking with each other.
Yes, thank you. And could you maybe tell a bit more about what your biggest challenge was in actually identifying your customer lifetime value, whether it be online or offline?
The biggest challenge was, making sure that the data was accurate and validating that data. So again, you don't want to be running manual data. So you could run data from your accounting system and run it in an Excel and then establish a lifetime value, but that's very clunky, and you have to run it every week or etc. So making sure that a platform you use is really dynamic in terms of it will change and based on consumer behavior week on week, and so you can identify patterns and changes. And then a big thing is then segmenting that and creating cohorts within that lifetime value. So we know, if we acquire customers during October to January, the lifetime value of those customers might be higher than customers we've acquired in the summer. And then why is that? And then we can then look into that further. So, but it all falls back into data. So we are very much data obsessed.
Thomas, thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that talk. And yeah, we'll be kicking around a bit if anyone wants to discuss anything in a bit more detail. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.